Hi, and welcome to Managers One-on-One, a podcast about being your best as a manager at Microsoft. I'm Nicole Christie, Senior Manager of Employee Communications, and with me is Director of HR Communications, Christina Watt.
That's me, Christina Watt. We're getting super real with Microsoft managers about their journey managing people, their successes, failures, and the joys and challenges of empowering people to be their best.
In this episode, we're talking with Robin Cole. She's a Principal Program Manager in the Commercial Software Engineering Organization, also known as CSE. Robin manages a global team of 50 employees. She's a Microsoft boomerang, so this is her second tour of duty at the company. And she's worked all over the world in a variety of industries and roles, so her outside Microsoft perspective is deep. She's also experienced a metamorphosis in her management style over the years, so we'll talk with her about that shift, which is a great example of growth mindset. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So before we get started, we like to begin each episode with something called a check-in, which is a practice where for the first few minutes of a meeting, each person in the meeting answers two questions. In my team, we typically do a word to describe what each person's feeling and a question such as what might be distracting you from being fully present. So let's get started. Nicole, what's your word and what's distracting you?
So my word is uncertain. We have a lot of change happening on our team right now. And so it's like a time of hope and it's exciting, but it's also sort of, what's gonna happen? You know, how are we going to shake all of this out? People moving around. So that's my word. What is distracting me is Thanksgiving. Oh my God. I have 7 people coming into town for Thanksgiving for like 6 days. So yeah, it's a lot in my brain right at the moment.
Yeah, good luck. And thanks for that. Now it's in my brain. Well, so I'll go next. My word is grateful. I'm always grateful to get to have these conversations and learn from other managers. It's so good. And then what's distracting me is a big birthday party tonight in like an hour and a half across traffic. And like, who decided that a weeknight was a good night for something like that?
Yes.
So, how about you?
My word is consistency. I have been plagued for the last 2 or 3 days, starting last Friday of the work week and continuing to Monday and then today with a number of process improvements that we have to make across our organization. And it turns out if you put 15 people into a room and you ask them all to have an opinion about something, you'll get 16 opinions about that something. So I am an effort driving towards consistency, that we have a shared context and can move forward hand in hand in the organization. And what's distracting me is I have a race to run this weekend, a car race in Thunder Hill in California. So I leave tomorrow to drive for 2 days down to California in order to race a car. I'm a co-owner of a race team, and that's my distraction.
What kind of car?
Awesome.
Miata. My husband and I co-own a race team along with the third person who's our engineer. My husband and I and the engineer are all drivers. And so we have a Miata. We've been driving for about 10 years. We've been racing for about 6 years. This will be our second trip to Thunder Hill, California. Fantastic track. It's 5 miles long, though, so it's super long with lots of twists and turns, lefts and rights, not just NASCAR, all lefts and rights. So I'm a bit distracted of having to take the car down there and then drive it at speed in order to achieve glory and fame.
That is incredible.
You
My
know what?
dad was a go-kart driver. So yeah,
so much fun.
Hobby, knows it well. But yeah, grew up on the track and love it.
We do karting in the off-season in order to keep the skills up.
So cool.
What's so fun about meeting with Robin is she's full of surprises.
Yes.
I know that we're going to hear all about this.
Oh, yeah.
So you've been managing people for a long time in a variety of industries. Can you talk about your journey as a manager?
Sure.
What's your background?
It's been a fantastic journey, actually. So it started off with starting to manage people when I worked at Sony in San Jose. So my background is mostly digital media, then evolving into PC devices, and then various forms of technology. So I worked at Apple, Sony, Microsoft, small companies, large companies, acquisitions, sell-offs, all that kind of stuff. Started managing folks when I was working at Sony, and it was a QA team. I started off as about 30, 35 people, which was a lot to manage from the very beginning. And that's how I knew I was not very good at it at 27, 28 years old. I'm like, wow, I'm responsible for these people putting foods on the table. Yeah. That is so much pressure. So I did that for about a year. I was offered the opportunity to move to Tokyo with Sony. I did that. You're not really allowed to manage folks if you...
Yeah, you mentioned mentioned that before. Tell us more about that.
It was a choice. I was given the choice of, hey, you have this opportunity. The senior folks in Tokyo Sony have invited you to come to Tokyo and do some amazing things. Sounds fantastic, but you'll have to be an individual contributor, give up the team. I was actually told this will somewhat stall your career a little bit in terms of pure career progression. You'll get a lot of experience, but you won't progress your career as a manager, which generally puts you on a certain path. And again, because of my own somewhat self-conscious nature of managing people at such a young age, I decided the experience was worth way more than continuing to kind of Forrest Gump my way through management at other people's expense. So I took that on. And it was, you move to a country like Japan, it's got a very specific culture. It's obviously got a very specific language. And so it's not easy to manage folks that are so, have such a cultural difference. And so they just don't want to put you in that position when you're in Japan. And it was fantastic. I learned a ton. We're still part of a great team. But it wasn't until I came back to the U.S. working for Microsoft, actually, that I started my management career again. So when I joined the HD DVD team, also as we talked about, I have learned Microsoft, the only thing they like more than a success is a spectacular failure. And my career was rife with them for the first 7 years at Microsoft. So I started again managing folks as part of the HD DVD team. It was a marketing and business development team, small international team. Mostly at that point, I was still very driven. I'm still very driven today, but I was very driven to get things done. And people are a way to scale, so I very much treated the team that way. It was a worldwide team, so that was a way to be doing things 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, effectively. And I kept that kind of management approach for probably the next 10-ish years. And it wasn't until I left Microsoft, actually, that I started to learn to approach my management style a little bit differently. The first part of that journey started actually when I was in HD DVD, and my manager at the time, Jordi Ribas, who's still at Microsoft, taught me the value of consensus-driven decision-making. Honestly, when we first started to have that conversation, I looked at him like he was just gonna send me around the bend.
So what was new about that for you? What?
I had the feeling that I was right, and that was enough. And so,
as you're managing your team, it's like, what? I'm right.
Exactly. Line up and let's get it done. And it didn't occur to me that being right wasn't enough, which was actually interesting because I'd gotten some fantastic feedback from a manager when I worked at Pacific Bell. I was an individual contributor. It was Y2K. I was in charge of a project that was on path to absolutely explode. The minute it turned midnight 01, I was just positive everything was going to go down. It's a telephone system. It's going to go poorly. So I just imagined that was what was going to happen. And I kept waving my hands at the management team. And keep in mind, Pacific Bell, Dilbert is literally based on Pacific Bell. I literally worked for the pointy-haired boss. Not at all kidding. Dear. Carol was the actual admin in our team, and she really would punish you by taking away your office supplies. Not kidding. This is the environment in which I decided to go, it's all going to burn to the ground. And my manager, who was absolutely fantastic, came up to me and she was like, we need to have a little bit of a discussion about your approach. You might be a little intense. Really? You think so? You think I'm intense? Really? You think I'm intense? She was like, not everybody's ready for the right way, Robin. I don't really know how to, how could they not be ready for the right way? I'm here. This is the right way.
Oh, wow.
She's like, not everybody's ready for the right way. And you shoving it down their throat is not making it any better. And by the way, as a woman, the more shrill you get, the less they listen.
Wow.
You need to learn to calm down. You need to learn to see if they're ready for the message. And you need to be prepared if they're not ready for the message to just walk away. Your job is to present the opportunity, present the problem, present the solution. Their job is to make a decision.
So you learned to slow down, which was not natural for you.
I did not learn to slow down.
I know. I was going to say, when did you learn?
Yep, no.
Or have you learned?
I finally did learn, and it was under Jordi. While that was fantastic advice, and I've always remembered it, I was ill-equipped to apply it until I started working for Jordi. And part of Jordi's was he showed up every day in that way. I saw him every day bring us together as his leadership team. And there was a old school Microsoft, so there was a GPM, and there was a test lead, and there was a dev lead, and I was the business lead. And we'd all sit in this room, talk with him, and he really would bring us together. And it was hard. I saw he struggled. These were senior people. I was the least senior person on his leadership team. I was watching these 66, 67s talk to this brand new 68 of really questioning him, really pushing back. I'm like, is this how it works? Because I'm not super comfortable with this. If this is what consensus-driven is, I'm just going to take my right and be might. But I saw him work it. I saw him work it. I saw him bring everybody along. I saw that it was challenging, but I also saw that in the end, if you can manage to do that, then everybody is way more bought in. And it may take a little longer to get there, but when you get there, the results are so much better for Microsoft and our customers. The team is so much more bought in, and the leadership has so much more faith and trust in you that whatever comes next is going to be a little less hard. And then what comes after that, a little less hard. And at some point, you're looking up and everybody's holding hands singing Kumbaya.
Wow.
So tell us more about how that's shown up on your team.
My current team, again, I've got about 10 direct reports. So bringing everybody along is an absolute, it is a muscle builder. In fact, just over the last couple of days, I've had a couple of day-long MBR type of reviews, monthly business reviews, and I got some interesting feedback from it saying, the way that we approach this, I had not only my leads, but I suggested my leads invite somebody locally to attend so they could also see the strategic conversations, the decisions we were making about trade-offs and stuff that we were doing. Ruthless prioritization is one of our key terms for CSE this fiscal year. So they got to see that happen in action, those conversations, those trade-offs. And I actually did have one of my direct reports not from the U.S., so culturally the feedback was very interesting, saying, I feel a little uncomfortable having one of my directs in the room because your feedback was kind of pointed. And that made me pause. And I said, was it disrespectful? Oh, no, it wasn't disrespectful. Was it unprofessional? No, it wasn't unprofessional. Did I say something personally about you? No, it wasn't me. So I gave you constructive criticism about the data and you were concerned about one of your direct reports being there? Tell me more.
Oh, good.
And that is how you bring folks along. I mean, my initial reaction is, I feel like we should be able to have these conversations, these hard conversations, these constructive criticism conversations, and as long as they're not disrespectful, as long as they're done professionally and all of that good stuff, then we should be able to have those. So it was interesting to draw him out. Tell me more. How can we manage this? How can we continue to have an open and transparent environment, which I'm super bought in on, but do it in a way that you still feel empowered, that you don't feel disempowered by these types of conversations. So it was fascinating feedback. And now it has taken me on a journey of checking in with everybody who was in that room. How did you feel about it? Did you feel it was productive? Did you feel it was a little too pointy? Is there a line? And trying to figure out where that is for everybody. I need to bring everybody along. Everybody, they don't have to like it all the time, but they do have to feel bought in and part of what happens next. Otherwise, as I say, what do you call a leader with no followers? A woman out for a walk.
So you are, as you're talking about this, it's clear that inclusion is important to you.
Very much.
And you're really focused on including the people that are in the room, that are on your team. I know this is an important thing to you as well, just in your career, and that you're involved in diversity and inclusion efforts at Microsoft. Yes. and more broadly. Can you talk about that?
Sure, happy to. So we have an ambassador program as part of CSE where we're out there recruiting for more diverse and inclusive talent. Even that part is interesting because you kind of get put on this path of go recruit diverse talent. Well, what is diverse talent? I mean, it's not just gender or, whatever kind of buzzword of the day sort of thing. And what's inclusive? Inclusive isn't just how a minority feel or a group of vocal folks feel. It's actually kind of everybody. Yeah. So it's interesting to have that diversity and inclusion. We see so many different interpretations of it, so many different disciplines of it, so many different approaches to it. One person's inclusive behavior by asking you about where you're from or your heritage is another person's, I'm tired of explaining this to you. So you kind of have to be super careful. And we're sent out as CSE, as part of Microsoft, so it's a great big, it's a big obligation, a big opportunity that I get to carry as Microsoft's brand to have those kinds of conversations and to be that leading edge, especially after Microsoft has been front and center in some of the not best ways. We want to make sure that when we talk with folks, they know that we've got an eye towards it. Do we have it figured out? Absolutely not. Are we working on it every day with the best and brightest and biggest hearts? Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, and tell us about, so that kind of leads into the culture shift that we're all experiencing. You've been here again for how long now?
Back 3 years now.
Back 3 years. So
She's
what
a
have you
boomerang.
seen? Yeah.
7 years, took a little break, came back. Thrilled to be back.
So what are you seeing now taking place that maybe you didn't see before?
Oh, pretty much everything has been a full-on left at Albuquerque moment. Satya wants us to be a learn-it-all, not know-it-all culture. And I really feel those values every day. And it's invigorating. And when you run into personally, my personal experience in the 3 years that I've been back, when I've run into something that I truly thought was antithesis to our values, I call people out on it. And not in a mean sort of way, not in a, shake your finger sort of way, but in a, hey, I don't just preach our values. I don't just read about them in hit refresh. I kind of love them and I kind of live them. And I don't feel like we're doing that here. Can we have a conversation about what's going on such that we're not aligning to that? 100% of the time it's, I had a bad day or this sort of thing happened or I'm frustrated about this thing. 15 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes an hour and a bottle of champagne later, we had worked through what that issue was and we were right back on the same page. And I didn't see any of that willingness before.
Wow.
Well, and now we have new manager expectations.
Yes. Model Coach Care.
That's right. So do you want to talk about what that gives you, or maybe one that you lean into a little more, one that maybe you need a little more work with?
Yes, yeah. So I love the flexibility of the framework. It doesn't say do this, do this, do this, do this. It says we need to model, we need to coach, we need to care. What does that mean for you? Have these conversations with the other managers. So I love the flexibility of the framework. Again, I think that's indicative of the culture of Microsoft right now. We want to give you guardrails to bounce between. We want to give you great ideas to aspire to, but we're not going to tell you how to put one foot in front of the other. We believe that you have the power, the talent, the aspiration to do that better than we could ever tell you how. So go forth and prosper. So that's what I love about the flexibility of the framework. In terms of the actual items, I believe that coach and care are very, very important, but they're choices that you make. You can choose to coach somebody. If I lean into something, I have a conversation, you can choose or not choose to coach somebody. Model coach care. You can also clearly choose to care or not, which would be bad. And that's probably a day you need to check in with yourself as well. But you can choose not to necessarily lean into that. For my part, model is what you can't choose to do. You show up every day, and how you show up every day is the model that you're providing. If you're late to a meeting every day, your team's going to be late. If you are, if you send emails on the weekends, your team is going to answer emails on the weekends. If you show leadership in meetings, if you make space in the conversation, diversity, inclusion, the folks who are looking at you will model that behavior. And what I'm also finding, our organization, CSE, it's about 750 people worldwide. As big as that seems, in Microsoft it's actually quite small, but for us, even when it seems super big, it's actually a very small community. If you are not modeling the behavior that you want to see, if you're not modeling the behavior that you want everybody to participate in, it comes back to you. You do a bad model on Tuesday, you are living that dream by Thursday. So the fact that you influence so many people so quickly through your modeling, it's very telling and humbles you very quickly as well.
Yeah. When you talk about modeling, one of the things that we say in the manager expectation of model, the behaviors are, living our culture and embodying our values, practicing the leadership principles. Some of that means you're creating a culture of trust. It also means that you're showing up authentically as who you are and that you're being inclusive. And you've talked about this, of everyone on your team, also who they are, showing up with authenticity. Yeah. We were stalking you on LinkedIn a little bit. And you had a great post about trust and authenticity and what the difference is between that.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yes. I learned that actually, again, once I'd left Microsoft. I was working at a medium-sized company and establishing my brand again. In Microsoft, I'd been there 7 years. A lot of people knew me. This new environment, I had the opportunity to essentially recreate myself. As it turns out, leopards don't change their spots and tigers don't change their stripes. And you can only remake yourself a little bit. And the remaking, I determined for myself, there's a difference between being truthful and being authentic. You can tell somebody the truth on something and still not be authentic about it. And I felt that being authentic was more important. The truth, even today's a great political climate of there's three sides to the truth, your side, my side, and the truth. Whereas authenticity, you can't argue with how I'm being authentic because I am me. And that means kind of warts and all. Part of the authenticity thing is I firmly believe, as far as my communication style, in something called radical candor. It allows me not only to project and set the expectations. I tend to communicate a certain way. I'm very transparent. I'm an oversharer. I like to engender trust by creating that environment where everybody's going to be honest with each other. I used to tell people I don't have feelings. I've got one tiny little feeling, and I keep it in a box, and I put it in the drawer so that people aren't scared to tell me the truth. I've gotten a little more sophisticated at it by referring to radical candor, but the most important thing about radical candor is the dimensions that it offers. You have to care personally before you can challenge directly. If you skip straight to challenge directly, you're just kind of being mean.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so the authenticity piece comes out for me in that as a communication style as well as a management style. I want folks to know that I'm here to make them successful. And I've often said, as a manager, I'm here to make you successful in this group or somewhere else. So if it's time to move on, if it's time to do something different, I want you to then look at me not as your manager, but as a potential mentor or coach. What's next for you? How can I leverage my network for you? That authenticity allows me to show up as somebody who is multidimensional. I care about my people. I care about my company. I care about my group. I care about me and professional growth opportunities as well. Authenticity allows me to operate on all those dimensions without sacrificing any one of them or pitting them against each other. And truth kind of feels narrowly defined that way these
I
days.
think it's a great difference to point out. And what you're saying about when you show up with that authenticity and communicating, you're creating a trusting, safe environment for everybody.
I hope so.
Well, and what Model Coach Care, really the coach and care pieces, those go hand in hand. So you're talking about Kim Scott's Radical Candor book.
Yes.
And just for those listening who might want to pick that up and dive into that.
Fantastic, yes.
And I think that the way that coach and care interplay in the model is, or the framework I should say, is that if you care as a manager where I'm going personally, and then you coach me to that,
Yes.
then any feedback you give me, no matter how truthful, I know it's with the right intent to grow me in the direction that we've mutually agreed upon.
Absolutely.
Because I know you care.
Yes, exactly. It makes that feedback, especially if it's constructive criticism, it makes that feedback so much easier to take because you know where it's coming from. It's coming from a good place.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you can share a story of where you showed up at your best as a manager, and then maybe where you didn't quite show up at your best.
I loved the preceding questions. I thought of so many different things, and it's funny where I landed in terms of examples for that literally happened in the same week.
Wow.
It happened, brought the team together, current team as they exist today, and brought the team together to talk about what our fiscal year plans were, how we were going to do that, how we were going to come together as a team, create a PM community. I feel like I showed up as my best in that moment because I was able to set a vision for the team. I was able to tell them I'm here as a manager, as a coach, as a mentor. I want to help bring respect to the PM discipline in our organization, which was a big challenge for our organization previously. We ended it with an AMA. Again, transparency, radical candor. I love AMAs. Literally ask me any question. And one
Explain AMA really quick.
Ask me anything. Inspired by Reddit, but a lot of people use it now. I ended our full day PM Summit with an AMA, and as people were able to do stuff anonymously on Post-it notes, or they were able to raise their hands, of course. And so I'm going through all the Post-it notes, and one of the Post-it notes was like, what keeps you up at night? And I picked that one, and I was like, oh, we'll talk about that one later. And then I picked up another one, and one of my team members called me out on it, fantastically so. Hey, you said radical candor, you said AMA, and yet you put that one aside. I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I put it aside so that I could answer it later, but I'll answer it right now. What keeps me up at night? You people. Are you coming along on this journey? Is this where you want to be? Are you bought in? What more can I do for you to bring us together and create this community? You people are what keep me up at night. And am I doing the right thing for you and this organization and this group? Where I didn't show up so great was later in that week with my LT, and we got together to talk about how things had gone. There were some things that I was a little unhappy about, and instead of practicing my meditation, which we had also talked about as part of our prep here, and practicing that, taking a moment and bringing people along, I jumped right into being rather dictatorial on what needed to happen and where I saw the problems. And I was overly aggressive, shall we say, in my feedback. And it ticked some people off, full stop, it ticked some people off, but it also really hurt some people's feelings. Like they had spent a week buying into me, and I was able to undo it in 20 minutes. And that was huge for me to be able to, fortunately, again, radical candor, I had established enough of a relationship with a couple of folks on the team that they came back to me and said, look, I was really uncomfortable with how that went. I think it went from absolutely amazing and I'm super bought in and I'm super on board with this to, whoa, that went poorly very quick. That escalated quickly. And that was me. I got excited about what I was doing. I got too intense about it again. I got too GSD focused again, too red, table pounding.
Explain GSD.
GSD. Do I need to be Disney about it?
Nope.
Oh, excellent.
Explicit language.
Excellent. I've been parsing myself so that you know. Get shit done. I am a GSD person. I even have socks. I even have a whole bunch of stuff that people have given me to represent my GSD-ness. So yes, that is my brand. I have been cultivating that for 20 years. I had some great mentoring from a corporate vice president at Microsoft back in the day. He was like, what do you want people to think of you? And I didn't really know how to answer it at the time, but he rephrased it by saying, what do you want them to think of you when you walk out of the room? Ah, yes. I want them to think, she can get shit done. I want her on my team.
Wow.
And that's the brand I've been cultivating. The side effect of that is the dead bodies in your wake, constant feedback on me professionally, that I have a bias towards action is the nicest way people have put it. I am deeply passionate. Somebody even told me your enthusiasm is aggressive.
And it sounds like you've been evolving that.
Yes.
You're very self-aware.
Yeah.
Thank you for being
thinking the same thing.
honest and vulnerable. So where's it gone or going?
It's a journey. It is absolutely a journey. That I mentioned the meditation. I start most of my mornings between 5 and 5:30 with at least 30 minutes of meditation, then another 30 minutes of working out in order to get it out of my system. On calls generally by 6:30 or 7. So it's a constant thing. And even when I meditate, I have this visual thing where I have to imagine the things just flowing out of my body to make space for the day. I know a bunch of stuff is going to be heaped on me. I know the excitement lays in whatever's ahead, but if I don't make space for it, it's just going to pile and pile and pile, and then it's going to overflow. And that's when I get to the having my not best management moment.
But it's sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back,
Yes.
right? And so I think other managers feel that, experience that, and it's okay. It's part of the process. Just being that self-awareness that you've cultivated so that you can keep growing and go, oh, crap. That was a moment, not proud of it, but I see it. I recognize I learned from it. I move forward.
Exactly.
And I love how you have strategies to create conditions for
and
your own
tools.
success.
Yes. With varying levels of success. Even I have a shirt that has a floating unicorn on it, and I have to intentionally pick this shirt out some days. It says in cute little script language that looks Thai-ish, so you don't look super closely at it, but it says, let that shit go.
Oh,
And it is a visible reminder in the day that I need to let that shit go.
and P.S. Right now, Robin is wearing a shirt that says trust. Yeah.
It's true. It's a racing shirt, and that's a pin, and you rely on that pin to do a whole bunch of really important things. So you're trusting a tiny metal pin, which actually is a lot like management. I'm trusting one person with my future, with my career, with good decision making to remember me even when I'm not in the room.
Wow.
What a great note to end on. So if you had one piece of advice to pass along to managers, what would it be?
Believe in yourself. You're enough. You're always enough. Believe in yourself. Others will believe in you. Lead with kindness. Lead with authenticity. You're not there to sell yourself. You're there to do something with people for the job. Show up as you. You are enough. And if you believe that and you lead with that and you keep being authentic and develop those relationships, you'll be fantastic. How could you not be?
Ah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for
And,
having
you
me.
know, I'm still as grateful at the end as I was at the beginning to get to learn from you.
Yes.
Thank you.
There were a lot of open-mouthed moments over here where I was just like, wow, sharing such cool insights. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you.
To me, my favorite insight, and she had so many, I literally was sitting here like open-mouthed and like, oh, wow, like I was at Disneyland all day. But I love what she said about authenticity. It's showing up as herself as a manager and really bringing that out in the people that she leads on her team. I think that's the baseline, in my opinion.
Well, and I think an accompaniment to that I just want to acknowledge her for is her self-awareness.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
I mean, to
Yeah.
be able to share that level of feedback that she's received and take that in and then turn it around
Totally.
and turn that into a positive for her team. And so you can see that she's on her learning journey at the same time. She's also helping to coach her teams. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And a
how
great
her-
example.
Her management style has evolved. Like she said, GSD, but she hasn't let go of that part of herself. It's not that it's really evolved, it's expanded. And that's inspiring. We want to thank Robin Cole for joining us today. And thanks to our producers, Dave Nelson, Stacey Harris, and everyone at Lens Group Media. Until next time, I'm Nicole Christie.
And I'm Christina Watt. Thanks for joining us for Managers One-on-One. Here's to being your best as a manager and bringing out the best in everyone. For more information about the role of the manager at Microsoft and the manager expectations, visit aka.ms Management Excellence.